Lunaverse, Episode 2, Family Matters, Chapter 4, Explanations and Illusions. Dinky, Ditzy Doo said, breaking the silence that had lingered between the two of them for the past hour, ever since her mother had returned to their apartment and gave her mail bags to another pony to finish her route, promising to make it up for it later. What were you doing in Amethyst Stars? Dinky didn't look up from where she had been sitting, on the cushions of the living room's couch, staring at her host and trying to figure out what had happened. On the floor was her school bag, still laden with 100 bits. She did blink a few times at the question, though, unsure how to answer it. Was everything ruined? Her surprised? A year of hard work gone, just like that? Surely her mother had seen Sparkler scoot up all of the bits and put them in Dinky's bag. But the question was phrased as though she hadn't noticed that. That meant there was still some way to salvage this. Somehow.
It was a new store,
she lied. It tasted like bile was filling up her throat and mouth even as she did, but she continued anyway.
Why did you take it out?
Dinky didn't look to her mother. She didn't have to. She knew that her mother's wings would be sagging, her face a look of resigned sadness. Ditzy Doo always knew when her daughter was lying to her. Dinky had never lied about something so big before, though, and never in such an outright way. Until now, her worst lie was that she was spending the money the Fluttershy was giving her every week on candy or toys. And even then that was technically true, just not the whole truth. And Ditzy had never questioned it before. Dinky heard movement, and a few moments later she felt her mother sitting down on the couch next to her, though it had seemed almost careful not to touch Dinky. I have tomorrow off, Ditzy said. Her mother was forcing her voice to be bright.
We should go do something. Go to a play, maybe. Or Cloudsdale's nearby this time of year. You've always wanted to go, right? I could take you there. We could go to the Coliseum and see... I guess school. You could get skip it. One day won't hurt. I'm sure Miss Shirley will understand. I can't fly. I could carry you. I don't mind. You knew Sparkler,
Dinky interrupted, as he felt something inside of her. It was hot, bright, and yet somehow cold and dark at the same time, and Dinky didn't like it very much, but didn't stop herself from letting it rise.
You knew Sparkler. How come Sparkler hates you, Mama? What happened?
Dinky spun around to face her mother. Ditzy Doo had recoiled at her mother's outburst, wings raised high in surprise. She had previously only one eye focused on Dinky, the right one, but Dinky's outburst both had come into focus. After a few moments of silence, she looked away from her daughter, closing her eyes tightly, wings sagging.
Dinky, I'll tell you. I swear to Luna. I'll tell you tomorrow. Just give me one more day, Dinky, please, please.
Dinky opened her mouth to shout again, but faltered at the state of her mother, who once more looked like she was on the verge of tears. It was all Dinky could do to stop herself from throwing herself at her mother, hugging her, and promising her a million more days of not knowing if she just wouldn't cry. But she didn't.
But I know something's wrong, Mama, she said. If we do go to the Coliseum or play or whatever, I won't be able to have fun because I know something's wrong, and you know something's wrong too.
Ditzy Doo closed her eyes.
I know, she said softly. I know, okay?
She took in a deep breath and let it out slowly, focusing herself. Though the focus was ruined as soon as she looked to her daughter again. She steeled herself anyway.
This has to do with your father.
Dinky blinked several times at that, eyes widening. Dinky Doo knew, of course, that she had a father, or at least possessed one at some point. She asked her mother about him a few times, but she always told Dinky that she'd tell her when she was older.
Does Sparkler know him too?
Ditzy nodded, her wings twitching slightly in agitation and discomfort, but she pressed on.
Amethyst Star, Sparkler, is the daughter of a unicorn named Castor Cut, and so are you.
The unicorn filly went down, taking this in.
My father's name is Caster Cut, she said, and Sparkler's my sister. But then why?
Half-sister, Ditzy interrupted. Caster Cut is your father in Sparkler's, but I'm not Sparkler's mother. She's only a few years younger than me. Sparkler's mother is named Maybelle, Caster Cut's wife. Dinky considered this, trying to fit the pieces together in her head. Her mother was giving her time, at least. It almost felt like a math problem, one where there was something that wasn't added up.
But why would Sparkler hate you?
Ditzy Doo looked like some pony was hitting her every time Dinky asked a question. She looked down, away from her daughter again.
When I first met your father, she explained, I was barely more than a filly. I mean, I was almost a full-grown mare. In another few months it was going to be my birthday. But I didn't really act like it. I just went to parties, came home late, didn't do my homework. I was a superficial, stupid pony. What does superficial mean? Shallow. Anyway, when I first met your father, it was at a bar in Philadelphia. He'd been fighting with his wife and just wanted to relax and unwind. And I was in heat, so I wanted to also relax.
Dinky nodded a little. She had yet to have what being in heat meant explained to her in detail. All Dinky knew that was that in every autumn for about a week, her mother would get agitated and moody, and often needed to take time off work, and alternated between not wanting to be around any stallions and wanting very much to be around them. She had only the bare-bone basics of it explained to her. That being in heat meant that her mother's body was very receptive to becoming pregnant, but no pony would explain to her how that happened, yet. Her questions were always answered with a very awkward, when you're older, no matter who she asked.
So, we talked, Ditzy Doo explained. We danced, and we had fun together. Adult kinds of fun.
Again with not telling her what that meant.
I don't get it, Mama, she said flatly. What's so bad about that?
Ditzy bit her lip.
It wouldn't have been so bad, Dinky, if it had just been for a single night and then forgotten about it. Bad, but not so bad. But like I said, Dinky, Caster Cut was married, and what we were doing, it was only supposed to go between two married ponies. Or at least two ponies who are very much in love and who aren't married to some other ponies, like my friends Lyra and Bonbon.
Dinky thought a moment.
Okay,
she said. She didn't have a lot to go on. She had frustrated very little, in fact. But she accepted that her mother didn't want to go into the details of whatever it was Caster Cut and her were doing. Dinky didn't understand why, though.
I kept seeing Caster Cut for months, and he kept seeing me. But we had to do it in secret. We didn't want Caster Cut's wife finding out, or his daughter. Because, Dinky, he still loved Maybelle, he just hadn't been getting along with her. So you were helping him, Dinky exclaimed. If you were helping him relax and...
Ditzy shook her head.
No, I was making things worse. Because rather than talking with Maybelle and trying to work through his problems, or else divorcing her because the two just couldn't get along, he'd just come and see me. It was really the worst possible choice he could have made. But I let him do it. I even encouraged it.
Dinky stared, uncomprehendingly. Her mother, the kindest, sweetest mare in the whole world, the element of kindness, had been acting like that?
Why, Mama?
Dinky asked in a small voice. Ditzy's lip was trembling.
I was selfish. I wanted your father out to myself, but I didn't want to have to deal with the fallout from him getting a divorce, even though that was not my choice. I thought it was because I loved him, but it was only really because he made me feel good, and I was being selfish. It's not the same thing. But then, something unexpected happened. Something that meant Caster Cut had to choose between either me or his wife. Me,
Dinky surmised.
Yes,
she said, unnerved by her daughter's leap to logic.
I became pregnant with you, I'd actually been pregnant with you just shortly after Castercut and I met, but didn't realize it until about 3 months later, and that's when Castercut told me we weren't going to see each other anymore. He had to choose between his wife and daughter, or me and you. He chose his family.
But Dinky objected to that. She felt tears stinging her eyes.
But I'm his family too, aren't I?
Ditzy just looked sad. She didn't have tears in her eyes, though, as she moved over to the couch, sitting closer to Dinky and putting a wing around her daughter, holding her close. To her infinite relief, Dinky pressed herself tightly against her mother, eyes wide as she tried to understand what her mother was telling her.
Your father, Ditzy said, wanted to just ignore that he and I had ever been together. Find a reset button and just push it. And I didn't have the courage to try and stop him. But, well, Dinky, pregnancy isn't exactly something you can hide. My parents found out, and they found out who got me pregnant. The next month or two was just a disaster for me. For Castercut. My parents tried to make Castercut take responsibility, dragged me to his front door. His wife and daughter watching the whole thing, and put me in display, and were going to bring him to court, but I didn't want to ever see him again. So, I packed up my things, took my savings, and moved to Ponyville. I don't know what happened to Castercut, but it wouldn't have surprised me if he and Maybelle got a divorce.
Dinky was staring at her hooves. Tears still stung in her eyes, but she wasn't really crying. The tears came and fell as she tried to understand what her mother explained.
So that's why Sparkler hates you,
Dinky surmised. Dizzy nodded.
and that means I'm a mistake. That I should have never been born. Don't say that,
Dizzy interrupted fiercely.
Don't you ever even think that, Dinky Doo. You are not a mistake. You weren't expected. You were surprised. But I have never thought of you as a mistake, Dinky, and I never will. And you should never do that either. You are the best thing to have ever happened to me. You're sweet, you're kind, you're hardworking, you're smart. You're everything any pony could ever want from a daughter. I don't deserve you.
Dinky looked at her mother in disbelief.
Yes, you do, she exclaimed. You're the best mama ever. You work real hard and teach me how to do things, and you saved me and every pony else for Corona. Dinky, that's just what I expected of mothers. That's how they're supposed to act. That's what they're supposed to do for their daughters. Maybe, Dinky said, wiping away the tears from her eyes. But you do it better, Mama. It doesn't matter what you used to be like.
She fixed her mother with a pointed stare.
So don't even think that, Mama. I'm going to be sweet, kind, and hardworking and smart from you.
Dizzy stared at her daughter for a few moments, before her lip began to tremble. She drew Dinky into a tighter hug with her wing, and leaned down, nuzzling her daughter.
Not your smarts, she insisted. You didn't get that from me. Not your father either. That's all you, Dinky.
Dinky began to respond for that, but after a moment decided against it. Words would only cheapen the moment, she knew. Instead, she leaned into her mother's nuzzle, and let the silence reign between the two of them. Internally, however, Dinky felt determination come over her.
I need that necklace,
she told herself in no uncertain terms.
If Mama really doesn't think that she deserves me, I need to tell her how much she's wrong. But Sparkler won't sell it to me. I need to find some way to trick her into not knowing that she's selling it to me.
Dinky had to keep herself from reacting as he hit upon an idea.
Of course! I know exactly who can help me out, but I have to hurry.
Dinky glanced on the clock of their living room. It was just 3 p.m. If Sparkle's jewelry store was like any other shop in town, they'd be closing at 5, and Dinky wasn't so sure she had time until her mother's birthday. She needed to act fast, but that meant she had to. Dinky closed her eyes, simultaneously steeling herself and fully thinking through everything she had to say so that she wasn't making up things on the spot.
Mama? Dinky asked. Yes, nothing? I need to go over to Skittle's house, Dinky lied. She needs help with her homework. You have to write a paper on early equestrian history.
Ditzy looked her daughter over, eyeing her. Despite the gravity of their previous conversation, she seemed to have switched gears easily.
And?
She asked expectantly.
How does he do that?
Dinky asked herself. The lie was 90% true, and her mother still knew something was up. But that was why Dinky held back a little. She looked away, feeling some genuine embarrassment.
It's because in history class today, me and her, we weren't paying attention. So Miss Shirley gave us a paper, and I said I'd meet her at her house.
The gray Pegasus ruffled her wings a little.
Not paying attention in class?
Ditzy asked, her voice full of maternal concern.
Yeah.
Ditzy Doo sighed, looking at the clock.
All right, but be back by 5. I think we should have dinner together and plan what to do tomorrow. Okay.
Dinky promised, as he grabbed her school bag telekinetically, then retrieved her winter cape and hat, headed toward the door of her apartment, though not before sparing a moment to plant a firm kiss on her mother's cheek, lest to start to suspect anything. Dinky did not like at all the lying she had to do recently. Surprise or no surprise, it was beginning to weigh on her conscience, and she didn't like that she was starting to make choices based on trying to sell her lies, most of all to her mother. But it would all be worth it. She was certain of it. If there was one pony she could count on to help her out, one pony who would be able to put on an act of buying a necklace for herself, but secretly buying it for Dinky Doo, and not let Sparkler know, one pony she could trust to help her, then that one pony was the representative of the Night Court of Luna,
Miss Trixie Olamoon.
Fortunately, Skiloo's house and Trixie's home were in the same direction, so Dinky didn't need to worry about her mother watching out the window. As Dinky approached the iron fence that surrounded the residency, only chest high on an adult pony, but one which towered over the unicorn filly, she took note of the fact that it had been fixed up nicely. After the longest night, the residency had been a complete disaster from ponies who were mad at Trixie for reasons that Dinky didn't fully understand. But all the damage seemed to have been repaired, making the place good as new, especially the front window that looked into Trixie's office, which had needed to be replaced a second time afterwards when the replacement furniture had arrived and somehow a couch had ended up going through it. Dinky passed through the front gate and found herself smiling. This would be easy. The door to the residency flew open. Trixie dashed out of it, then closed it behind her, horn glowing brightly as the cerulean aura surrounded the door. Something banged to it from the other side, hard.
That sounded like it hurt,
Trixie noted. She was wearing her hat, but not her cape. Clutched in her telekinetic was a book stuffed full of notes and hurried script.
Bonbon?
A voice, with no aura that Dinky could see, asked. It sounded like heartstrings, one of Trixie and Ditzy Doo's friends, and the element of loyalty. But something was off about it.
You okay, sweetie? She's fine, Earth Pony,
Dinky said, glancing straight up as he turned around, and noticed Dinky for the first time, eyes widening a little.
Oh, Dinky,
she exclaimed, blinking a few times. There was a notable pause before she added,
Hi?
Hi, Dinky, Lyra's disembodied voice added, from next to Trixie. Dinky stared.
Hi?
She responded, slowly creeping forward and looking to where Trixie kept talking.
Miss Heartstrings?
You could just call me Lyra, the voice said. Dinky jumped in surprise at the sound of the voice from nowhere.
It's really weird talking to nothing.
Trixie's brow furrowed at that, and her horn glowed as she waved a hoof. In front of Dinky, Lyra seemed to materialize from nothing, a bright grin on her features. My horn is not that short, Lyra said without moving her mouth. Dinky looked at Trixie in confusion.
Illusion,
Trixie explained to Philly, before looking back at the image of Lyra, or rather, some point in space above the image of Lyra.
And yes, it is. And we don't have time to argue right now. Did you turn Lyra invisible and now you can't make her invisible and only you can see her?
Dinky asked, as she mulled over the information in front of her.
And make her giant since you keep looking up to talk to her?
There was a pause, as Trixie looked to her side, and presumably Lyra looked back. Sure, Trixie said after a moment.
That's what happened.
Dinky eyed Trixie.
No, it isn't.
She adjusted to the obviously transparent lie.
No, it isn't,
Trixie echoed, as he began walking toward the front gate. Dinky following, and the illusion of Lyra keeping pace, trotting along normally. Though her bright grin didn't move, and her movements were exaggerated, more like a puppet moving than a pony. Trixie opened the book in front of her, looking it over.
Look, we've narrowed it down to just these three. All we needed to do.
The last ritual took half an hour, and it didn't do anything! Lyra exclaimed. The train leaves in 15 minutes! There was a pause. And my hooves are freezing! Or whatever these things are called! Trixie glared at Lyra again, the real Lyra, but then stopped walking and frowned.
I feel like I'm forgetting something.
Curse! Dinky turned around at the sound of glass and wood shattering, and saw a cream-colored, blue and pink maned earth pony rising from the garden in front of the residency. Before Dinky could react, Bonbon, Lyra's mare friend, had cleared the iron gate and landed almost on top of Dinky Doo, a look of pure rage on her face. But a look which was, fortunately, not directed at the filly. Instead, focused first to her left, then to her right, as though she was looking for prey. Dinky, for her part, was confused at the earth pony's confectionist's actions, though after a moment she saw why the earth pony was looking around rather than taking her anger out on some pony. Trixie and the elusive Lyra had disappeared. Where did she go? Bonbon demanded. She looked down to Dinky, her gaze softening a little.
Dinky Doo, sugar, where did Trixie go? I'll give you a free candy for a month if you tell me.
Dinky knew that it was wrong to lie. She also knew it was wrong to be an accessory to murder.
Diddly!
She told Bonbon, pointing down the street. In a flash, Bonbon was off. Dinky wasn't surprised when, as soon as Bonbon was out of sight, Trixie seemed to blink back into reality. The invisibility glamour she had woven over herself falling off of her in a blue mist that quickly dissipated into nothingness. She didn't recreate the Lyra figment, instead looking to Dinky.
Thanks, she said. I owe you, kiddo.
She is going to be so mad at me, Lyra's voice mourned.
Dinky looked at Trixie. I actually came needing a favor, she said. See, there's this new jewelry store, and I need to get something there today for my mama, but my mama can't know or else.
We don't have time! Lyra's voice interrupted. The blue unicorn looked to the invisible Lyra, then back to Dinky.
We don't,
Trixie said, a pain tone to her voice.
I'm sorry, kiddo, I really am. But me and Lyra need to hoof it, lick it, whatever, to the train station. She has a sew a Canterlot that she can't miss.
Dinky stared, wide-eyed.
But,
she objected.
But I need...
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Trixie said as she turned and began gobbling off toward Ponyville's train station.
I'll make it up to you, I promise!
Dinky tried to object again, but it was too late, as the unicorn mare was already off, presumably with the invisible giant Lyra in tow.
But,
Dinky tried, though unlike Trixie, she was really speaking to the air.
But, what am I supposed to do now?
Chapter 5 Catharsis. Are you him? The blue-coated, yellow-maned stallion of the 3 Pegasi that were standing in the front of the door demanded of her father. He wasn't particularly large, even compared to Castercut, but there was a cold fury in his eyes that terrified Sparkler. Standing near him was a Pegasus mare, with a lime green coat and dark green hair, who was matching the stallion's gaze evenly. Standing between the two, looking down, was a gray-coated, blonde Pegasus mare, though she looked only a few years older than Sparkler at most. Her eyes were yellow, but not aligned correctly. One was glancing upwards of its own volition, while the other remained focused downwards. Sparkler had only a glimpse of them, though before the young mare squeezed her eyes shut. From the looks of things, they were a family.
No, wait,
Castercut begged, as Sparkler watched her in the hallway. Her mother coming up beside her. They had been having lunch, but the banging at the door had interrupted them.
Dad, I don't...
The young Pegasus tried.
Ditzy, be quiet,
the stallion ordered, though he didn't take his gaze off Sparkler's dad.
Are you him? Are you the reason why my Ditzy Doo is pregnant?
Casta?
Sparkle's mother, Maybelle, asked, rushing forward at the stallion's words. Sparkle could only stare in shock at the accusation.
What is he on about?
Custer Cut looked to the blonde Pegasus mare, then to his wife, then back to Sparkler, mouth opening quiet, trying to work. No, I...
Don't try to deny it!
The older mare shouted.
Don't you even dare! She's barely more than a filly, you sick! Custer,
Maybelle asked,
is this...
It is, ma'am,
the Pegasus said, jabbing a hoof at Custer Cut.
Your husband was sleeping with my daughter, and now she's pregnant, and he is trying to shirk responsibility.
How? What?
Maybelle demanded.
Shut up! Just shut up! You're lying!
Don't you call my daughter a liar! The green mare cried. The gray-coated pregnant Pegasus was looking down at her parent, looking between her parents.
Mom, please. I don't want to do this.
Shut up, you little...
Custer, how could you? What made for Star's sake?
Maybelle, I didn't mean to...
Didn't mean? What? Was it an accident that you were sleeping with Ditzy for 3 months? That little thing is barely more than a filly. She's disabled. I'm not disabled. It's just my eyes. I knew what I was doing. This isn't happening. Your husband is going to support my daughter. He is going to support her fall. He is going to do no such thing for the harlot. Don't you dare call my daughter that! I'll call her what she is. Custer, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to Sparkler? Don't you love us?
Sparkler couldn't look away as her family fell apart.
No! Shut up! I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to see you anymore. I thought we were getting better, but I wanted the divorce!
Maybelle,
I'm taking Sparkler, and we're going to my sister's at Carolot. I don't ever want to see you again!
Amethyst the Star blinked a few times, as he realized he'd run out of paper on the ledger she was writing on several minutes ago, and was now writing on a display case, covering it in blank ink. She scowled at it, grabbing a cloth and cleaning it off. Memories of that day, what her father had done, of the several years in Canterlot that followed, were exactly what moving to Ponyville was supposed to help her escape from. The worst part of it all was that it was remembered advice from her father that made Sparkler keep shouldering it on through the day. She couldn't remember the exact words, but it was something to the effect of, every pony falls down, but no pony ever accomplished anything by staying down. Moon and stars. She hated her father all the more for that. She had his eyes, his cutie mark, and now she had his voice in her head. That's a recipe for a healthy pony, Sparkler noted aloud to the empty store. In spite of it all, though, it was good advice, and thankfully, no pony who came into her brand new store after her run-in with Ditzy Doo seemed intent on asking her what had happened. She was able to keep her temper surprisingly under control when she went about her business for the day, even managing to hit her sales estimate as she closed up her shop at 5, just as the sun was beginning to touch the horizon, heralding the safe, if chilly, arrival of the night. It took longer than expected, though. She'd probably have to look into getting an assistant. Tomorrow will be better, Sparkler stated, simply after she had finished gathering up all the jewelry in the display cases and putting it into her store's safe, along with all the money she had made for the day, wondering all the while how she had gotten into this mess. All she wanted to do was get away from everything. Get away from her father and mother and the drama created by that. Homewrecker! And try to start fresh. Ponyville seemed ideal. Of course, apparently, it seemed ideal to a certain gray-coated Pegasus as well. Sparkler had to know that. Not until 2 months ago. Not until all the lease papers had been signed and the inventory ordered. Not until after she had reached what amounted to the point of no return. Not until Corona had escaped from the sun, and Ditzy Doo had somehow managed to become an element of harmony. Sparkler had hoped that she would be able to go longer without running into Ditzy Doo, and had certainly not expected to learn about Dinky Doo and everything that her existence implied. Yes, she'd known that Ditzy Doo had been pregnant, but to actually see the little filly in front of her, to have talked to her. But Sparkler wasn't going to focus on that. No, she was going to go upstairs, into her new home, and put on a record of something loud and mind-numbing, and plunge herself into a book or magazine of some such. and just forget everything that had happened that day. She had to double check on the lock of the front door. But before she could, however, there was a knock at it. Sparkle frowned at the sound as he approached it, as he could see no pony on the other side of the door's small window. Opening the door, Sparkle gasped slightly at the chill that rushed to greet her. Between simply closing her shop and actually doing everything to clear out the shop for the night, the sun had set, and this night was looking like it was shaping up to be a cold one indeed. But her gasp grew to a shout of surprise when she saw who had knocked on the door, and she recoiled through the feely unicorn who had done so was a snake rearing up and ready to strike. Dinky Doo leapt backwards a few feet at Sparkle's reaction, but no further, and quickly recovered, far faster than Sparkle herself. The two unicorns were silent for several long moments after that, just staring at each other. Sparkle broke the silence first. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. She tried to keep her voice calm and collected, and to her own ears it sounded like she nearly succeeded. Dinky stared at it a moment before answering,
"I want to buy that necklace."
"You can't," Sparkle answered immediately, without thinking. Dinky Doo took a step forward.
"But it's my mama's birthday in just a few days," she said. "I saved up all year, and please, Sparkler."
"Amethyst Star. My name is Amethyst Star." Dinky said that, then took another step forward.
"Please, Amethyst Star. I saved up all year for my mama."
Sparkler had actually begun to shiver from the chills seeping into her store when the door opened, but at the mention of Dinky Doo's mother, a hot rage boiled through her. "No," she stated firmly, still trying to remain calm despite her anger. I'm not to that. Look, I don't know how much you know about your mama."
"My mama told me everything today,"
Dinky stated. She stared. "Yeah, I'm sure. Her side. What? Did she say my dad took advantage of her?" Dinky shook her head, with surprised Sparkler.
"Mama said what she did was wrong, and it's her fault, and that she shouldn't have done it, and she's very sorry, and it wasn't fair to you or your mom."
Sparkler bristled at that. "She doesn't get to apologize!" she exclaimed, whickering and stabbing her hose in anger. "I don't want her to apologize! I want that whore to go to the sun and burn!" Dinky stared wide-eyed at Sparkler's proclamation.
"That's a horrible thing to say,"
the filly stated. Sparkler blinked at that. She had been thinking when she said that. But even if she had been, she wouldn't have expected a measured response from Dinky Doo. Amethyst Star closed her eyes. "Go away. Leave me alone. Find something else for your mother."
"No, I want that necklace."
Sparkler sneered despite herself, using magic to start closing the door. Dinky leapt, though, and the older unicorn was barely only able to stop the door from slamming into the filly as she placed herself firmly on the door's threshold. She didn't seem to care that she nearly caused Sparkler to injure her. "You're not getting it!" Sparkler shouted in spite of herself. Some part of her couldn't believe that she was seriously attempting to chew out this little filly. Dinky Master glare.
"But it's perfect for my mama, and I saved up all year. I didn't do anything wrong. There's no reason to—"
"Store's closed."
"I'll give you all 100 bits. Keep the change."
"No, you're not getting it. She's not getting it."
"I'll have friends. Don't buy it for me."
I just won't sell to little fillies at Colstead."
"Not them," Dinky stated. "I have adult friends. Miss Trixie, Miss Cheerly, or Miss Bonbon can buy it for me, and you don't know who they are. Or maybe Miss—"
"I do now, since you told me their names," Sparkler observed. At the moment, she was too angry to dwell on the name Trixie, other than let out a slight mental groan and make a note to make sure her store was insured against flooding. Dinky's mouth clamped shut at Sparkler's point. Her glare switched to almost mollified. Sparkler had to fight hard to stop a burst of laughing at seeing a rapid change of attitude.
"I have other adults for adult friends, too,"
Dinky stated firmly. "Then I'll take the necklace down. I won't sell it to any pony. What then, huh?" Dinky thought a moment.
"I'll get something else," she decided. I saved up for a whole year. I can save up longer. If I have to miss my mama's birthday, then fine. I'll get her something else. But I'm going to buy something nice for her to show her how great she is. Unless you don't want to sell anything to any pony, you'll have to let me.
Okay, that's it, Sparkle stated, glancing behind her toward her own deep blue winter cloak. She grabbed it magically and brought it over to her, wrapping it around herself before looking back to Dinky and grabbing her telekinetically as well. Dinky yelled as he was hefted into the air, and Sparkle stomped out of her shop and into the night, carrying Dinky behind her. We are going to go to Town Hall, and some pony is...
Sparkle!
I told you to call me Amethyst.
Ow, Miss Star, you're hurting me.
Sparkle's eyes widened at, as he released her telekinetic hold on Dinky and turned around rapidly, hoping the damage wasn't too great. I'm sorry. Sometimes I grab things too hard. I didn't mean... Hey! As Dinky, as soon as he had been set back down and free from Sparkle's Lavender Aurora, had dashed to her store, letting out a slight squeal of triumph. The older unicorn followed as quickly as she could, horror glowing as she chased the filly in. Dinky had run up to the display cases, not noticing they were empty, until she came right up to where the necklace she wanted was normally kept, and found it devoid of any jewelry. Before Sparkle could grab the filly with her hooves or teeth, she wasn't trusting her telekinesis right now, just in case Dinky hadn't been lying about Sparkle accidentally hurting her. She dashed off to the left, causing Sparkle to tumble and land on the floor. Get back here, you little... Sparkle exclaimed as she stood up in time to see Dinky dashing behind the display cases. Sparkle gave chase, but the filly was an agile thing, despite having much shorter legs, easily avoiding Sparkler's clumsy grab attempts.
I chase chickens every weekend. You can't catch me.
Dinky said as he ran to the back of Sparkler's store, right up to the safe. Unfortunately, she now found herself in a small room, an office, with the only means of exit being the way she came in. Upon realizing this, she turned around, wide-eyed as she realized that the door was blocked. Sparkler was panting, despite her chase being only a brief one. Dinky, for her part, didn't seem out of breath at all, but then, she was a little filly. Bursts of energies were second nature to her. All right, you little reprobate, she said. I've got you. We are going to Town Hall. Somebody there is going to get contact with your mother, and she's going to come and pick you up, and hopefully ground you for the rest of your life.
No!
Dinky exclaimed, tears in her eyes.
If you do that, then Mama will know about the 100 bits, and she'll know why I came back. That was for the necklace. Now ruins the surprise. I saved up all year for my mama. It's the secret from my mama, even though I hate lying to her. And I don't want it to be for nothing.
Sparkle blinked at the sight of Dinky Doo breaking down to tears. Where before the filly had shown a remarkable amount of stoicism, her inner reserve of maturity had apparently, at last, run its course. The filly was bawling now, openly and without shame in the way that only foals could and truly broken could, having fallen back onto her haunches, letting her tears fall.
I just want my mother to be happy.
Dinky sobbed.
She works so hard, and she's so kind to every pony. And ponies make fun of her for her eyes, and she just laughs it off. And then she saved the whole world. And then you came along. You ruined everything.
Sparkle took a step back at that, as her eyes narrowed. I ruined everything? The older unicorn demanded. Your mom's the one who...
Mama was happy before she saw you, and I didn't know about my father, but it didn't matter because I had my mama. But now you're here and my mama's not going to be happy anymore because she made a mistake and you will forgive her, even though she's sorry. And you're supposed to forgive somebody when they're not sorry. Scootaloo forgave me when I called Rainbow Dash lazy and stupid after I said I was sorry, and now we're friends.
I don't want... Whatever Sparkle didn't want was drowned out by Dinky's tears. The filly had run out of words by this point, was just crying her eyes out, somehow that it convinced it was Sparkler's fault. Even though Sparkler was the victim here, she was the one who had her family torn apart by Ditzy Doo. All she was doing was not selling a single necklace to the silly. It wasn't like she was purposely trying to make Ditzy's life miserable. She would have been perfectly content to have never interacted with the Pegasus beyond hateful glares whenever they saw each other. But none of that changed the fact that there was a wailing feeling in her office. Sparkler grit her teeth, then closed her eyes. Fine, fine, fine! Just stop crying! Sparkler stopped just past Dinky Doo, going to her safe and using her horn to turn the combination locks. Dinky didn't stop crying entirely, but she did tone things down as she watched Sparkler open her safe and start flinging jewelry around as she dug through it, before finding the necklace and taking it out. By the time she did, Dinky was already struggling to open her school bag, sniffling as she poured out the bits. Fine! Sparkler exclaimed again, tossing the necklace to the floor at Dinky's house. Here! You want this? Take it, and I'll take these. She used her telekinesis to scoop out the 100 bits that Dinky had poured onto the floor. And I'll keep the change because of all the trouble you caused. There, you have the stupid necklace. Happy? Dinky blinked, staring at the silver chain and yellow gem that lay before her. Lips still trembling, a confused look on her face. No. Well, why in Luna's name not? Sparkler asked. Oh, what? Did you suddenly realize that breaking into my store is a bad thing? You feeling bad about calling me mean? I'm not the mean one. I'm the victim. So are you. You should hate your mom as much as I hate my dad! Sparkler stomped a hoof. He cheated on my mother. They had been married for years and years, and I was his daughter. I looked up to him so much. I became a jeweler because he was! And he just forgot all about that and went out and slept with some 10-bit whore and didn't even think at all about what it was going to do to his marriage. And then you were born! My dad cheated on my mom and abandoned you! And your mom, she... Dinky stared at Sparkler as the older unicorn realized that her breaths were coming in short, quick gasps, hyperventilating with rage. Or so she thought until she felt wetness on her snout. Her legs gave out at the sensation, as did her telekinesis holding the coins aloft. The unicorn fell to her knees, head hanging as she, unlike Dinky, fought against her tears while it rained silver all around her. It's not fair, Sparkler cried hoarsely. I didn't do anything wrong. I was a good daughter. I loved him. It's not fair. It's not fair. Sparkler heard hoof steps and glanced to see Dinky approaching her. The filly leaned in, nuzzling Sparkler. Despite herself, the older unicorn leaned into it. It was then that any control she had over her emotions just slipped. She cried, and cried. She cried more tears than she knew she had. Every few minutes, just as she was about to finish, just as she thought she had a hoof on things, she started again. Sometimes because she remembered a happy time with her father, often for no reason at all. Occasionally a word or phrase, such as daddy or it's not fair, would slip out. But more often than not, all her throat could produce was sobs. I just... Sparkler said at length, when at last the tears seemed to ebb. I just want my family again. I want my mom and my dad. I want them in the same room without shouting at each other. Without it being a courtroom.
Maybe it'll happen someday,
Dinky offered, as the filly continued to nuzzle Sparkler. No, it won't. They hate each other now. The older unicorn leaned back, looking Dinky over. She really did look like a miniature, wingless, horned version of Ditzy Doo, at a glance, but up close, Sparkler could see a slight purple tinge to the filly's coat. A legacy from her father, a connection to Sparkler. This filly, no matter what Sparkler wanted, was her half-sister, was her family. Sparkler wasn't sure what that meant. What was that supposed to mean? But maybe she was supposed to find out. Slowly, her legs shaking, Sparkler got up to her hooves. Come on, she intoned, wiping tears from her eyes. Let's get that necklace wrapped up. Final chapter. 6. Truths. Happy birthday, Ditzy Doo! every pony else exclaimed.
Happy birthday, Mama!
Dinky shouted as her mother blew out the candles on her birthday cake, which had been baking in shape of, and with frosting dolled up into much-awaited success, a blueberry muffin. There was a cheer, and candles flared and died. Ditzy Doo was not normally one for parties, but after the shock she had received earlier in the week, she was for once perfectly willing to just let herself go in the collective will of every pony present, each of whom seemed determined to make this her best day ever. The gathering was relatively small, at least. In addition to Dinky, there was Lyra, her mare friend Bonbon, Trixie, who was doing her best to remain on the other side of the table from Bonbon at all times for some reason. Find out Veiling and Helping Hooves coming soon to the Martial Art Fruit user channel. Carrot Top, Raindrops, and Cheerilee, who together rounded out the elements of harmony. Silver Script, the postmaster of Ponyville. They were all gathered in the party room at Circuit Cube Corner. Against all odds, Pinkie Pie, Ponyville's party pony par excellence, was not present. Ditzy's friends having somehow managed to arrange things with the cakes to have her occupied somewhere else in Ponyville for today. This suited Ditzy Doo just fine. Pinkie's perpetually positive attitude could become grating very quickly.
Sure, what is a whisper?
Silver Script asked as Trixie used her magic to grasp a knife and began cutting into the cake, though not before looking at it thoughtfully for a moment.
What could I wish for?
Ditzy asked, a bright smile on her face as she looked around the room.
I have everything I want right here. How, Mama?
Dinky said, smiling brightly as though she had finally figured out a particular vexing math problem.
Do you think?
Ditzy laughed at that, even as the cake and slices were moved aside for the moment while Trixie worked on them, still pondering the knife a bit too closely for Ditzy to be entirely comfortable with the situation. But Raindrops seemed to be keeping an eye on her, and instead, every pony got their gifts ready.
Okay, this one first,
Ditzy said, taking out a long, thin package.
From Silver Script.
Dinky unwrapped it with hooves and teeth, and found it to be a plain brown cardboard tube, closed at both ends. Opening one, she took out a large sheet of paper, a map of Ponyville in exacting detail, with a multitude of lines drawn across it in various colors, numbered 1 through 33. Raindrops, who had come behind Ditzy Doo, looked it over. Oh, I bet that's what you've always wanted, she asserted a dry voice.
It is!
Ditzy exclaimed as she looked over the map, glancing over the Silver Script.
New routes? When did they start?
Next Monday.
Silver Script answered proudly.
You will not believe how much the Postmaster General didn't want the routes in Ponyville reorganized. I have no idea why. It's not like she has to deal with him, but I convinced her in the end. Your routes are in green.
Ditzy looked over the map again. The new routes were, more or less, now all of roughly the same length, and could be split in nearly evenly amongst the 7 mares and stallions who delivered mail in Ponyville. It would take a little bit to commit them all to memory, but this, at least, meant no more stupidly long trips, and the green routes even had, all at their endpoint, fighter-sized codes.
Thanks,
Ditzy said, rolling up the map and sliding it back to its case, then passing it over to Silver Script.
What's next?
The package she had was small, wrapped up in bright purple and star-studded paper, and
Is it glowing? Oh, mine!
Trixie said, setting down the knife and coming over to the collective ponies.
And yes, I made the paper glow, just a little.
Ditzy, considering asking why, but then she suspected she knew the answer. Even in wrapping gifts, Trixie, without even realizing it, saw it as a competition. Just who she was. The mare resisted shaking her head, chuckling knowingly. Instead, opening the present, and found herself looking at a paperback book entitled De Debiantus. She looked at Trixie, asking the question with her eyes.
Oh, savageries,
Trixie translated.
Don't worry, it's just the titles in Old Unicorn. The rest of the book is in Modern Equestrian, and you probably know it better by the title of The Sovereign.
Ditzy was silent for another moment.
Actually, no, I don't.
Trixie blinked several times for that.
Really? By Silver Raven Tongue? Never heard of it?
I have, Lyra stated, casting a slight glare at Trixie.
So have I.
Cheerilee noted, then looked at Ditzy Doo.
Trixie, Why would you think Ditzy would want a book on power politics, especially this one?
Trixie whickered.
I like it. It's my favorite book after Don Roquillante.
That explains a lot, Bon noted under her breath. Trixie didn't hear her, instead looking to Ditzy Doo.
It's a great to read, even if you're not going into the night court or any kind of politics. It's not just one of my favorites. It's one of Princess Luna's, too. And look!
She used her horn to open up to a random page.
Large print.
Ditzy offered a smile. Being offended by Strababas as he was, reading the small size of text of most books was difficult for her to do, at least for a prolonged period. The large print at least showed Trixie's heart was in the right place.
I'll read it. I promise. Thank you.
Ditsy's voice trailed off when she heard the door to Sugar Cube Corner open, and looked up out of curiosity. Several ponies had come and gone already, of course, given that the cake still had a business to run. But, despite it being in a separate room of the bakery, from where Ditzy was sitting, she could clearly see the entrance and countertop. It was mostly just to see if any pony she recognized. As it turned out, it was. Amethyst Star, wearing a deep blue winter cloak, stared up at Ditzy Doo. Ditzy Doo stared back, her eyes coming into focus as she did. Every pony else gathered noticed the change of atmosphere immediately. Looking to the unicorn that had entered, then back to her friend. Ditzy realized that she hadn't told any pony of what had happened earlier in the week. This was bad. This was going to be very bad. There are only a couple of things that Amethyst Star could do right now, and none of them would end well for Ditzy. Not that it was any less than what she deserved. Ditzy braced herself for the inevitable.
Sparkly!
Dinky exclaimed happily, bounding on over to the older unicorn. Amethyst Star's gaze was torn away from Ditzy Doo's at the exclamation, as he watched the filly come up to her.
What are you doing here?
Amethyst Star did something then that Ditzy would never in a million years anticipated. She smiled down at Dinky. It wasn't much of a smile, but it was an honest one, as she leaned down so that she was looking the filly in the eyes.
Are you kidding?
She asked in a soft voice.
After everything that happened, I want to see how this goes as much as you.
Ditzy realized that she was standing when he slightly flared, only when Amethyst Star looked back at her. Gaze lingering for a moment, before she looked over every pony else as well.
Hi, she said. My name's Amethyst Star. I just opened a jewelry shop a few blocks from here. I won't be long. I'll be out of your mains in a few minutes.
You'll be out a lot sooner than that, Raindrop said, taking a few steps forward, muscles tense as she looked between Amethyst Star and Ditzy Doo. I don't think Ditzy wants you here. Amethyst Star eyes twitched slightly at that. She opened her mouth to say something. Probably something prerogative. But then a filly whose sense of self-preparation was apparently on the ebb positioned herself between her and Raindrops.
Just a few minutes, Miss Raindrops?
Dinky asked as she closed her eyes and her horn glowed. From the collection of presents waiting for Ditzy, a small rectangular one came out, decked in floral pattern wrapping. With effort, she was doing this from a further distance than she was used to, she levitated the gift over to her mother.
Sparkler helped me with Mama's present. See what?
Ditzy asked, eyes wide in shocking confusion.
But what?
Amethyst Star just waited, as did Dinky. At length, Ditzy took the present in her hooves, enlisting a slight sigh of relief from Dinky as he released the present from her grip, and slowly opened it. Cautiously, like there was a ticking time bomb inside. Instead, all she saw was a black case, though embezzled it was a silver stylized AS Jewlers on it. Opening the case, Ditzy found herself staring at a yellow gemstone, the color of which matched her eyes, set into a light silver pendant, with a matching thin chain. She took it out delicately with one hoof, blinking, still confused.
Wait!
Carrot Top objected, looking over from the necklace.
That's for Dinky?
Her? So was Grit to ask, looking to the foal. Dinky smiled brightly.
I saved up all year, she explained. I help out Miss Fluttershy every weekend, and she gives me 3 bits, so I spend 1 and save 2, and so I then had...
Wait, Ditzy interrupted.
Wait. The bits you were saving up? Under the floorboard?
Dinky stared at her mother in shock.
You knew?
She demanded.
I cleaned your room, Dinky. Of course I knew. I didn't know what you were saving up for, though. Not for me. I didn't think you were.
Ditzy hung the necklace on one of her wing's feathers as he came down to her daughter, drawing the unicorn fairly into a deep, tight hug.
That's so. Dinky, why would you go all through all that effort for me?
Dinky pulled away from her mother, looking in the eyes.
Because I love you, Mama,
She said, as though she were stating a basic fact of existence, like water being wet.
I didn't know what I was going to get you at first, but then I heard Sparkle's jewelry store was opening, and I didn't know you didn't have any jewelry, so I thought I'd get you something from there, and oh!
She exclaimed, putting her front hose to her mouth.
Mama, I'm so sorry for lying about why it was in Sparklers, but it was supposed to be a surprise, so I couldn't tell you, and I've lied to you all year about what I was spending my money on too, and I'm sorry, and then I lied about going to Jewlers because I needed to talk to Sparkler, and I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right, Ditzy assured her daughter, drawing her into another hug. She looked at Amethyst Star, still utterly confused. The pink unicorn was watching, again with a slight smile on her face. Okay, then, she said. I guess I better go. Leave you to your party, I guess. Happy birthday? After pausing a moment more, as if unsure whether or not to leave things on that note was enough, the unicorn turned around, heading for the door to Sugar Cube Corner. She was halfway out before Ditzy Doo managed to speak. Wait! She exclaimed. As the star paused, looking back over her shoulder at Ditzy. The Pegasus' mouth opened and closed a few times before she was able to say something intelligent.
Can I talk to you for a few moments outside?
As the star nodded, stepping outside, but leaving the door open as Ditzy stood up, looking back to her friends.
Just wait here. I won't be long.
Woo! Dinky exclaimed. Before her mother could go outside, Dinky again closed her eyes, concentrating hard as she took her mother's necklace from where it had been suspended on a wing, undid the delicate clasp at the back, and struck it around Ditzy Doo's neck, before closing it again. Upon doing so, the filly let out a long breath, wobbling back and forth slightly at having performed such fine manipulation with her necessitated telekinesis. She nevertheless offered a bright grin as she looked up to her mother.
Happy birthday, Mama.
Ditzy forced a smile. The intent was genuine enough, but somehow she just couldn't summon up the emotion for a real smile right now. Not with Amethyst Star sitting just outside. Dinky didn't seem to notice, however.
I'll be right back, Muffin,
she promised, heading outside. The silence that stretched between Ditzy Doo and Amethyst Star was palpable enough to be cut by a knife. Not even a particularly sharp one at that. Ditzy had, between where she had been standing in the door, come up with a million ways to begin the conversation. But all of them fled the moment she stepped outside and set her eyes on Amethyst Star. The unicorn was, for her part, looking at everything other than Ditzy Doo. Right hoof scuffling the dirt and lingering snow beneath her, as the awkward moment stretched and stretched.
I'm sorry,
Ditzy finally blurted. Amethyst Star jumped slightly at the sudden break to their silence, finally looked at Ditzy Doo. Like most ponies, she saw the Pegasus strenuous, tried to look at Ditzy like a normal pony, and failed by overcomprehending, staring intently at just one eye. Ditzy wouldn't let that bother her, though, as he pressed on.
I'm sorry for what I did, Amethyst Star. I was young. I was stupid, but that doesn't excuse anything. It's my fault, and I'm sorry.
Amethyst Star's face remained neutral for several moments before looking away. She began, and closed her eyes. I talked to Dinky. We've actually talked a lot over the past week. She told me you're sorry. Told me I should forgive you, but I can't. I just can't.
I don't blame you,
Daisy nodded.
What I did to you and your mother can't ever be forgiven.
I didn't say that, Amethyst Star interrupted. Ditzy stared at that, blinking several times, as the unicorn looked back to her. I can't right now, but maybe one day. She glanced at Sugar Cube Corner, through its window, where she could see Dinky Doo. I haven't talked to my daddy in years, and I'm not too big of a fan of my mom either. She wasn't exactly blameless in driving my dad away. It'd be nice to have some kind of family in Ponyville, even if it was just a half-sister. If that's all right, she added quickly, looking to Ditzy Doo. I mean, I'd like to get her to know better, and you, I guess. She loves you more than anything, so you kind of have to be part of the equation. Ditzy Doo's mouth was hanging open slightly. After a moment, she shook her head, gasping that she had actually heard everything Amethyst Star had just said, that it hadn't been an hallucination.
Of course, she said. Of course. Dinky seems to like you, and that's enough for me.
Amethyst Star nodded. Okay, she said. Okay, let's just leave it at that.
Mama!
Dinky Doo exclaimed. The two older mares nearly jumped out of their coats at the sound. As they both turned and saw Dinky standing at the door to Sugar Cube Corner, eyes wide.
Mama, Miss Trixie was telling Miss Carrot Top that for the even time she wanted to put on a magic show like she did for longest night, only this time without Corona interrupting, and she was thinking of doing something really cool and complicated, and she said she needed an assistant, and then I reminded her that she owes me a favor, and now she wants me to be her assistant. Can I, Mama? Please, please.
And Mrs. Star couldn't stop herself from letting out a long groan. Trixie, she moaned. Stars, I really picked this town, didn't I? Dicky's look of jubilation turned to a look of concern and expiration.
Do I have to try and make things better between you and Miss Trixie, too?
She asked. And Mrs. Star and Ditzy Doo burst out laughing at that, as well as the look at Dicky's face. The little filly smiled bright at the sight. It's, well, not a long story. But, well, I guess in hindsight, it's actually kind of funny, actually. Trixie probably wouldn't think that, though.
Can I hear?
Dinky asked.
You can come in and tell me we have cake in here. Well, Miss Raindrops was saying that she might eat it all if we wait too longer.
Dinky swatted so hard.
You two have to come inside, quick, before she does. It's your birthday cake, Mama.
Ditzy laughed again at that, trying into Sugar Cube Corner and nuzzling her daughter as he did.
I'll stop her and make sure she saves a piece for every pony.
She paused a moment, then looking at the older unicorn.
And if you want him, Mr. Star, you could come in. I'm kind of curious about that Trixie story myself.
And as the Star was still a moment, considering Dinky and Ditzy.
Cake!
Dinky intoned in a serious voice, as though she had said the only convincing that the older unicorn was needed. At length, she smiled. Call me Sparkler, she said as she tried into Sugar Cube Corner. And as for what happened with Trixie, well, it was a month before the longest night, in an ice palace. And, well, that's the story. That's today's episode, people. I gotta admit, I do love it. It is a good backstory for Ditzy, and I do like it when sometimes they have certain bits of their past. This helps to set Ditzy separate from our beloved Fluttershy. Giving Ditzy something that she has to work for, something to earn. Dinky, of course, well, as I said before, she's the Spike. Although, unlike Spike, I actually look forward to her episodes. She's adorable and sweet. And also at certain points in this episode, we can see future developments begin to happen. Like, say, Dinky getting herself up to be Trixie's student. Or Trixie preparing herself. Or, Trixie, well, you'll see. There's a few bits of story elements happening from helping Hosdale pop up later, which I'll be getting to next week. Well, not next week, but a few weeks from now. Also, I do like that this does bring up a couple of good, interesting talking points, and that as the Stars in Dinky's little problem wasn't exactly cured right off the bat. It's going to take some time. Both are neither blameless. Derpy in her way was kind of blamed for what she did because, well, she was young and naive and kind of stupid. But her little trias between Cast or Cut isn't exactly all on her either. It was also his fault. He instigated it, he started it, and of course, he was stupid enough to messing around with an underage foal while he was still married with his wife. I'm sorry, I really hate that jerk. So, yeah. fine way to let us continue on to the second episode. I do feel like this was kind of the type of episode that you would watch right after the pilot to get you into the thick of things. The coloring was also well placed, and Dinky is just simply adorable, even if she is a murder on the chords. Well, join us next week for the newest fic we're going to do. A rose is a rose, of course.
This is a very precious gift from my family. Something that my mother gave me once.
Wow, Fluttershy. I can't believe how important it is. And a rose by any other name will smell as sweet. So, what are you going to do with it?
I'm going to take care of it. Oh no.
But what if that rose, despite its smell, had another gift?
I brought my family's favorite heirloom.
Coming soon, from author Space Brony. My sister has been kidnapped. You six must go to the Well of Magic, find her, and stop this maniac before he destroys all of Equestria. We have to split up? Why? The legend says 6 must get lost. We can't do this together, girls. I'm sorry. Oh my word.
Somebody help!
A premiere event on Martial Art Fruit Users channel. We present to you A Rose is a Rose.
Oh my. My mother, father, I hope they don't mind.
Thank you.